All right. We are the Armchair Superheroes. It's Pat Lane, as always, with your boy Taylor Kyles. And today we have a very special guest. It is Ryan Arey from ScreenCrush. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to talk WandaVision with you. And, we're just excited to have you on the show, man.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here. You're going to see my cat wander around the background, one or two of them. In fact,
it's appropriate. We got a little Captain Marvel thing going on. We got Goose around in the background.
Yeah, right. No, I'm happy to be here. Sorry, I got distracted. Hold on one second.
No worries.
Can you give me? You guys talk amongst yourselves. I got to deal with a party foul over here.
Let's do it.
Definitely.
Party foul.
All right, sorry about that. Give me one second.
We got it.
All good.
All right.
So yeah, we're excited to have this on, man. It's going to be exciting. We have a heck of a show for you today. Obviously, we're talking about episode 7. Clearly, of WandaVision as we keep plugging along, and Disney Plus.
I got my Wanda sleeves on.
Oh, look at you with your Wanda sleeves on.
I'm gonna count some spells or something. We need
and that's it, man. That's it. We got and this is live. This is live. This is live TV for you. This is what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't have the Wanda ability of to just edit things out. You know what I mean? This is what happens.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
You think Wanda's the one doing the editing?
Well, see, there's another good question for you, right?
Yeah.
Look at that, right? So this is gonna
what happened? Sorry, what happened just then? I got 2 cats, and I heard this. I couldn't tell what it was. I thought it was like the humidifier. I heard a pumping sound, and I looked over, and I was like, "That cat just threw up right at the start of this podcast on the bed." So
it's exciting.
I had to go get some shout and stuff and spray it on the bed.
Yeah, no, you can't leave that. It's like, it's on the carpet, maybe. On the bed, no, can't leave that.
No, well, it was, I don't want to go into detail, but it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 2, but you still don't want to leave it, so it's not a big deal. It's fine, it's taken care of.
Little peek behind the curtain.
We got it out.
He's the kind of cat who would pick the exact moment you go live on a podcast.
Right.
To be like,
a little peek behind the curtain here. We were talking for about 5 or 10 minutes before we hit the live button, and he just waited for the exact moment. It's good.
Yeah, he was over here going, "I'm gonna fuck this guy up. I'm gonna hurry. I hate when he does podcasts. We're gonna take care of this right now."
Hey, good timing by the cat. That's what the cats do, man. That's what the cats do. That's what they're there for. So, all right. So we're gonna get into a few things. We're gonna talk about episode 7, but there's kind of 4 big picture items that I want to talk about before we get there. And of course, it's going to be interwoven with the content from episode 7, but also with the content before. And I think so. Number 1 for me, and this is kind of the big one for me, is why Westview, right? Like, of all the places in the entire universe that Wanda could be, she's in Westview, right? And it just so happens that Jimmy Woo has a witness that we haven't heard from yet.
Yep.
That lives in Westview. And so how does this witness, factor in? Because interestingly enough, they haven't mentioned him, right? Or her.
No, they really haven't. That's a great point.
Mm-hmm. And so you have to think that they're going to play in somehow, because there's no way, this is Marvel that we're talking about, right? There's no way that they're going to sit there and say, "Oh, that was just a thing to get him in the area." There's no chance. There's no chance that that's the case, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's another interesting thing you're not factoring in there. So you just talked about like what Donald Rumsfeld called the known unknown,
right?
Thing like we don't know, but there's a thing that we do know that's also important in this little puzzle. And I'm disappointed we only have 2 more episodes to guess about this stuff. Hayward, who is from the beginning, when you meet him, you think, well, that's a cartoonishly bad guy. And it turns he can't possibly be and it turns out he is a bad guy.
Right.
So they find out that he was, big shocker, trying to weaponize the Vision. So when Wanda stole his body, she was rescuing him. And she probably then took him to Westview for whatever reason.
Right.
Right. So the other question is, why did Hayward send Monica?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Under the pretenses of the FBI has a witness there.
No, that's a great point.
It seems like that's the connection. That's the really weird thing. Like, well, okay, but I have a theory on who the witness is. So I think I mentioned this in a video. I dropped it. But okay.
Yes.
I don't know who it is, but I think I'll tell you what it is, a Skrull. I think it's going to be a Skrull because it connects SWORD, the space security agency, with the FBI. Because if they had to put Skrulls in hiding for whatever reason or relocation, Hell, the FBI's got this sprawling apparatus just for that. Jimmy Woo wouldn't know the person was a Skrull.
Right.
So he would just be like, oh, that's my missing person. So I think that it wouldn't surprise me a bit if at some point in this show, in the climax, one of the characters we've seen the whole time is just transforms. And they were a Skrull, you know?
Okay.
Maybe the mailman, because he seems to know what's up.
Yes.
In fact, that's all the other people we've seen them kind of be mind controlled. Before last episode, I would have said Herb.
Right.
Hey. All right, no. You want me to drop this? This kind of goes ahead of what you were going to say, but I'll drop another theory on you. You ready?
Do it.
Great.
What if Pietro?
Yes.
Pietro's your Skrull.
Right.
That's a dumb theory. No, I'll tell you.
There are no dumb theories.
You're right. Dumb.
No.
Stupid. I hate it.
Here's why it's dumb. If he was a Skrull, why not just turn into Pietro?
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's very true.
I guess that's
what I mean.
If we're talking
shapeshifters
and everything like that.
All right.
One person that is rumored to be in Westview that we haven't seen yet, maybe Hulkling. You're talking about Skrulls. Maybe somehow made his way to Earth, needs to be protected because obviously he's royalty in the galaxy. But if disguise him as a human, we haven't seen a lot of the kids yet. The rumor that he's going to be there. So I don't know.
I should have guessed that, and I'll tell you why. We just put a video out that talked about the Young Avengers and Tommy and Billy and Hulkling and all these other things. And in that video, I said that there was a casting rumor from the Illuminati that said the Hulkling was going to be in WandaVision. And I have some friends who are friends with the guy, who are friends with the guy, and everybody signs an NDA, so I can't go into details, who read for a Marvel part that was for, quote, a character who's a child of two worlds.
Oh, baby.
So when you read through, like my friend of a friend of a friend told me when he looked at this, he was like, yeah, this is clearly who this character is and that character. And it was the Young Avengers. So,
right.
Yeah, I like that.
I hope so. I need more setup.
Well, they're definitely setting up, Billy and Tommy. Well, I think I'm getting ahead of what you guys,
I think you're on the right track though. And we got a whole bunch of things and we want to talk about, so let's get into the Pietro discussion. Cause that's the second question is who is Pietro, right? He's obviously being, controlled, right, by Agnes. We see at the end, he's being controlled by Agnes, but then he shows up at the end of the episode and you're kind of like, who is he, right? Is he, and one other thing, when he shows up, there is the perimeter alarm has been triggered, right? Because they go to the Sword headquarters and Darcy is there and the alarm's going off. So it seems like someone has either come in or gone out of the hex right before he shows up. So it's almost like he does come into the hex, but
yeah, I'm sorry. You mean at the end of episode 6? Sorry,
at the end of episode 6.
Yeah, or 5. Yeah, okay.
5, right? Yes, at the end.
I thought the perimeter alarm. I saw a few people tweeted that to me. I thought the perimeter alarm was just because the hex expanded. I just thought they had like a general emergency. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
But that could work too. That somebody went in or out. If it was somebody who went in, they had to have been somebody powerful because we've seen like how tough it was for anybody to slog in or out of it. It's a pretty impregnable barrier.
Right. Unless, so the theory then would be, so what I'm asking basically, and what I'm thinking is that Agnes or whomever it is Agatha, right now that we know, whomever it is she's working with, could have plucked that Pietro from the X-Men universe, who we know is not a twin, who we know is, he is Pietro Maximoff, but he's in a different universe, right? Could have plucked him from that multiverse and brought him to Westview with the intent purpose of throwing Wanda off her game and then controlled him into doing it, right? Now, whether that, that's way out there, of course, but that's, kind of a thing that I'm looking at. And he also could be like, I've seen theories about like, he is like the bunny can turn into, she turns the bunny into Pietro, like all sorts of,
I've seen that too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a question that I don't know the answer to, right? Obviously. And I think I'm open to every theory about pretty much all these things, right?
Well, my first thought was exactly what you said, that he was plucked from the multiverse subconsciously, but by Wanda, because Wanda's got, she's a nexus being, which in the comics means like she's a constant in all realities, and she's the same throughout. Like Kang and Dark Phoenix and Phoenix are both like nexus beings like that. So I thought that she subconsciously reached across the multiverse to find a Pietro, and this just happened. She happened to find this one who was alive. It could still be that. And it could be that just Agatha was mind controlling him.
Right.
The question I think you have to ask is like, if he's just some guy from Westview and Evan Peters just happens to be playing this guy, why cast Evan Peters?
Right.
Like, why go through that stunt casting? But in a show that's very meta, in all the good ways you can be meta, it's not just like meta for the sake of meta. I think it could work within that framework. It's a show it's a show about a pocket reality, and that's exactly what TV is. It's a miniature reality placed inside of our homes that tells us lies to make us feel better about ourselves. And then you add that to like this episode where Darcy's going through the names of like looking for Jimmy Woo's name and sees the name of a guy named James Gadd who works on the actual show WandaVision, who also popped up in the fake credits that Wanda scrolls up in episode 5. So it's like, wait a minute. So that means that that can just mind fuck you in so many ways. If you go like, hey, so this is the credits of a show made by these people and these sword agents are there. And so am I part of this too? Is somebody watching me watch the credits of WandaVision?
Right.
It's like that part of Spaceballs where they look back at the TV, at the camera,
Yeah.
It's just infinite TV shows.
Well, I just love how too, like when Darcy says, Darcy is now in it, but she says to Vision, like, I've been watching WandaVision for the last week. Like, it's like, wait a second, what do you mean? Like, it's just.
And it's tough because we're learning every week how the rules of this whole reality work. Like, one kind of thing I'm not so sure with Pietro, obviously it seems like he's mind controlled, but then at the same time we saw Wanda and Monica, their eyes turned purple and they were mind controlled. We haven't seen that from Pietro, even though in the Agatha all along we saw that he was controlling, or she was controlling him from the back. So like, we still don't know the visual language, really how it works, like how this whole shift in, how the whole universe is going to play out. And it also would be so weird if for a show that's so self-aware that they keep mentioning how strange it is that he doesn't look like Pietro or have Pietro's memories. Right. And then they just kind of drop it. It's just, there's such a thoughtful brand. It would be weird to have all these tie-ins and then just drop it. Cause I think by now they know how aggressive fans can be with the misdirects after Iron Man 3. So it's weird. Like, we don't really know for sure how pulling people from the multiverse works. Spider-Man already kind of duped us out with the multiverse. So I feel like every time we go down these, I just have more questions when I think about it than I come up with answers, which is part of the fun.
Right. Well, as for the purple eyes, I looked at that and went, I didn't think Monica's eyes at the end of the episode were her being influenced. I just thought that was her superpower.
Maybe.
And
that's true. Mm-hmm.
I think that we've seen Wanda be manipulated before, but we're always seeing that through the broadcast. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't. Maybe that wouldn't necessarily show up, the mind control aspect of it.
That's true.
Now, I thought you said you just touched on something like we're learning how this world works. There was something in episode 7 that kind of blew my mind, where Vision is doing his direct address to the camera, and then he gets up, walks away, and takes the mic off, which is by far the funniest part of any of the sitcoms. The sitcoms in the show haven't actually been that funny. I don't think they're supposed to be, because frankly, the Brady Bunch wasn't actually that funny. But that was really funny. And then it turns out he was just in the car with Darcy the whole time, and his direct address was actually his inner monologue and thought process, which makes you go, oh, okay, that's what reality shows kind of film those as. They stage those as directed thought processes. But that's also saying that within the context of the show that Wanda is not really talking to a camera crew. Wanda is in fact imagining all this. She's thinking all this because Agatha's putting it in her head. The same way Agatha put the sitcom credits in her head. It was Agatha all along,
Yep.
So the way, if I were going to draw a diagram, I would say that like Agatha puts the image in Wanda's head, Wanda makes it reality subconsciously. And then it, just because of her Infinity Stone energy, it's put out as TV waves. And that's, because of the Big Bang and CMBR radiation.
So wow.
I don't know if they'll actually explain it that way, but that sure is a satisfying answer for me.
I think so too.
That's why we brought on the big guns.
That's it, right? So, all right. So the next one for me, and I think that this one, I think everyone kind of has the same question, is where are the twins? What the heck happened to the twins? I know that there are theories that's like, in some of the comics that they don't really exist. So if Wanda stops thinking about them, they disappear. That would be pretty dark. That'd be pretty dark for Disney Plus. But there's also, there obviously was the rabbit who was already there, but like the rabbit and then the, fly thing, bug thing, whatever it was, right? Did she turn them into something else? Or did she, is she holding them somewhere? Like what the heck is going on with the twins? And I think that that's again, another question that I have. Any theory, I'm like, okay, hey, sure, that could be right, you know.
I don't think she'd turn them into anything. Just because we've already seen them transform, and it would be like, well, why the fuck is it? Plus, she has the rabbit at the end, and she has the rabbit all the way through the show. And,
yeah.
You know, and rabbits are sometimes witches' familiars. It's used stereotypically a black cat, but like they also use rabbits. Apparently, I was researching it the other night.
Right.
I think. Okay, so kids are born. Agatha's there being like, hey, Dottie's the key to this town. And Dottie's like, for the children, the whole time for the children. So it's pretty obvious Agatha was trying to use the town to encourage Wanda to have kids. Right. And then she comes over, there's babies. She sprays the babies with lavender and all of a sudden they grow, probably a potion. She's there every time when they grow again, kind of encouraging them with the dog. And then they almost grow again because of the dog dying, right? Like, then Wanda stops them, and Wanda actually approaches everything with emotional maturity. Like, hey, you have to actually grieve. You know, take your own advice, Wanda. So she clearly wants them to age up for whatever reason. You know, maybe when they're fully grown, they're at their full power, and she can sacrifice them to open up that book. So I think when we see the twins, it's going to be sad as hell, but I think they're going to be the actual teenagers. I think that's going to be the surprise, which is going to make us wonder. You know, if it's a cliffhanger at the end of episode 8, it's going to make us wonder, wait, is that them? Is this a fake? Right. Like, were they, you know, it's going to cast those characters into doubt for us.
Interesting.
Yeah, I definitely have a feeling that they're going to age up at some point just because the young actors they have are good. Like, I know Billy was one of the kids from Haunting of Hill House, and he was fantastic. So, like, these kids have some... It was bothering me so much. I recognized the face because I had just finished it. So I'm like a year or two behind. But I'm like, this kid looks really familiar. And then I looked it up and it's the same kid. So, you know, they've got their acting chops. But at the same time, we've seen Marvel recast the Young Avengers with Cassie Lang. Obviously, they had Emma Furman, I believe her name was, who did a good job in a very small role. But then, you know, clearly this is their premier team. So they got someone with a little more star power. So I feel like we are going to get another version of the twins, whether... You know, this show is already pretty dark, and like Teyana Harris was saying how the ending is really sad. So I really hope we're not going to have to, you know, see some horrible thing happen with the kids and wait a few years for new Avengers for them to come back. Because in the comics, I believe that's what happens. They're sacrificed to bring back the ending.
She said the ending sad. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was saying like it's a crusher. So
Vision doesn't make it out of this.
No,
he really doesn't. He doesn't.
I don't think, not that I don't think he should, but I think at least for now, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, and we talked about this last show, right? The visual of him, you know, getting sucked back into the hex was just unbelievable, right? And the idea is that he is ultimately, right, a projection that only exists inside the hex. So if the hex gets destroyed or eliminated or taken down or whatever the case may be, he can't continue to function because he only exists inside the hex. And so now maybe there's a possibility he could come back at some point, right? And I think that could theoretically kick off, right, the multiverse of madness, where she loses him and says, I'm going to go out and search the multiverse in search of another Mind Stone, knowing that one's out there. And then Strange is like, wait a second, you can't do that, you know? So
that's a good idea.
That's a possibility, of course. And then she could start as the villain, the villain in that movie, and then, you know, perhaps turn back or whatever the case may be, you know. But that's, you know, who knows what's going to be out there. But I think you're right about that, about Vision not surviving. But we'll see.
It's a shame too, because I mean they can always recast Paul. He's a robot. You know, it's one of the few parts you can recast. He's a synthezoid. Yeah. But nah, I can't see how, if for no other reason than they announced that Elizabeth Olsen is going to be in Doctor Strange 2, but Vision isn't. Right. So like, why ain't Vision in your show? Right. You know, or your movie?
It's so sad if Paul Bettany goes, though. He's been killing it, and he thought he was getting fired like once or twice already. And you know, because obviously his role just seems so expendable with what they've had to do with Vision, and especially since they were so excited to have him back, and he's been killing it in WandaVision, man. They obviously have so many people, but I hope we get more Paul Bettany somehow.
We'll see. I don't think he's gone. I don't think he's gone forever, even if he goes, you know. But we'll see. We'll see. So,
I mean, Jarvis's programming doesn't exist anywhere else. Like he could end up being in Rory Williams's head, you know?
True.
Yeah. And he does come up again with what is it? Kang or at some point, he's one of the main reasons the new Avengers are formed. I believe who is it goes back in time, and it's a program from Vision kind of explaining how to restart the Avengers. So there is precedent for Vision being around later in the comics. So there is hope.
There you go. Look at that.
Yeah, I hope so. And if it won't be him, it'll be somebody else who brings them together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, all right. So here's the last one, and then we're going to really kind of dive into episode 7. But is Agnes the one pulling all the strings? And to me, this question for me is obviously kind of on the tip of everyone's tongue. I feel like, everyone's looking at it saying, is it Mephisto? Is it someone else? Is she the one pulling the strings? And I think, obviously we don't know. I will say what I found interesting, and a lot of people pointed this out, during episode 6, when we saw her for the very brief scene she was in, she was not wearing her brooch during episode 6. She's
was
back.
That when sorry, that
was when she was, at the edge of town, like under mind, and he takes her under mind control.
It might have been under a costume.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was strange that we all they make it a point of showing it to you every single time, and then for it not to be on there that one time, I thought was interesting, and then it's
in her witch's costume,
right? In her witch's costume, right?
And I think she had it on when she had the exercise outfit on, and in this last episode, it wasn't as visible. I think it was like underneath her sweater or something.
Yeah, it was like at her collar, like right here.
Yeah, right. So, they've already, they tried to set Wanda. They tried to make us think Wanda was the villain, and I'm sure it fooled some people. It never fooled me, just because I was like, look, you're not going to reveal your villain in episode 4,
right?
Your twist isn't just going to be there. It's going to be later on. I don't think they'll go in for another twist. I do think though that Agatha is behind it. The question is why? Because in the comics, Agatha she's not really evil. She's not bad. She's more of a gray character. Like when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had her in Fantastic Four, it was like she was always kind of mysterious. You didn't know why she was wanting to babysit Franklin Richards. She was always kind of like, oh, you didn't really trust her because she was a witch.
Right.
You always thought she was up to something nefarious, but she's always been an ally of Wanda's. And I was on a podcast a couple of days ago, and this woman, Barbara, made a great point that Wanda has always been manipulated by men in the comics. Immortus, her numerous fathers she's had, like the list goes on and on. Even Pietro at certain points, Magneto, have all manipulated her. And Agatha's always been the one, try to kill her, use her.
Yep.
And Agatha wipe her mind, destroy her life, kill her husband, all just to use her power. And Agatha's always been the person who empowered her, who taught her magic. And now in the comics, last series I read, she was a ghost walking around with Wanda to support her. I would hate to see that not happen.
Right.
They would just be like, oh, here's evil Wanda, the same way we have like evil Iron Man and evil Thor and stuff. So I'm hoping that the reason Agatha is doing this is to like keep a demon at bay, whether it's Mephisto or Cthulhu or whatever other villain they want it to be. That like there is a reason for doing this. Now, I don't think that she like values the lives of the people in Westview. I don't think she cares. I think she probably just looks at humans like, hey, you burned my people at the stake years ago. I was there. I think next episode is probably going to open with like the Agnes origin story, Agatha origin story. So I hope there's a better reason for that. You guys want to see my dog?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Here he is. He's being bad in the other room, so I'm going to try to keep him occupied in here with an antler.
There we go. He stays cute here. He's good.
Right?
Yeah. I hope he stays. He's a good boy. I don't know if you can hear him barking or not. So anyways, I hope that she's not a villain.
Right.
But I definitely think she was, I don't think they're going to go back and like with another twist and say, oh, it wasn't her all along,
Right.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Sparky, that seemed like pretty, like that was just so aggressive. I was like, that's pretty definitively bad to just be like, and I killed Sparky too, and then laugh. I was like, oh, because I love Catherine Hahn, and selfishly, I kind of want her to stay bad, just because like her character in Parks and Rec, I brought up on the podcast a couple times, is so good. Like she's so funny, just being mean and kind of cool and uncaring, just because she's so witty and fast. Yeah. But at the same time, I think Marvel understands the kind of like social I guess, sway they have now, and having one character with mental illness, I feel like, especially in today's climate, kind of being manipulated by another woman, I feel like that just does not sit well, especially with all the ties to Nightmare and Mephisto and these characters who are known to manipulate people by taking advantage of their fear and how they are at low points. And like you said, with Agatha never having been, I guess, such a manipulative character, being more of a supporting person, it can go one of both ways, because everything we've seen from her up to this point leads you to believe that, yeah, she does have some really bad intentions, but it seems like such a weird 180 unless they make her an amalgamation of a bunch of different people, because Catherine Hahn is so good. Yeah, that's very possible as well.
That could be true too. That's one thing. I try not to get too hung up on like what I love in the comics and demand that on screen, because I already have the comics, like I don't need to see the exact same thing. It's just that I know the merits of that character and the strengths of that character, and I'd really hate to see them cast away.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it, right? Is you don't want to see the character completely changed, right? And I think that's the issue. That's one of those like, I mean, it's a complete, totally different. But like, she's not happy. It's
it's a he. It's okay. Sorry about that. I can. It's all right.
It's fine.
He doesn't
bring up Agnes.
He's gender fluid. Doesn't matter.
There you go.
I might mute him when I'm not. I'm going to mute when I'm not talking. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. Don't worry about it. It's similar situation in a movie. It's completely unrelated to MCU, but Gone Baby Gone is a movie that Ben Affleck did, and the woman detective in Gone Baby Gone in the book written by Dennis Lehane, she's the badass. She's the one that does everything. She's like the ultimate badass. And then in the end, the twist at the end crushes her, and like that makes it so powerful, because she's been such a badass the whole book that the twist at the end crushes her. And then it's like the movie, they make her like the weak character, and she's meek and she's not. And so like her being crushed at the end is like, well, that's just who she is. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, it just doesn't hit the same. You know what I mean? And so completely different, obviously, but like same type of deal where it's like, yeah, change the story a little bit, but like those characters, the main, point of those characters, like let's keep it at least close to the same,
And then when you bring up, like, we talked about the Salem witch trials happened in New Jersey. I think that's part of the reason it's in Westview. I feel like we're going to end up finding out that, and those roots that were underneath her house, like those were clearly ancient. So that made me think that maybe this has kind of been her spot for a while now. And then when you think about witches during the trials, we know now that they were just people who suffered from mental illness, people who were going through things and who were just cast aside by members of their community for whatever reason. And I feel like when you're dealing with mental illness, and then you've got something like the Salem witch trials, which if you want to go back, and look at it in a fantasy realm, then like, yeah, it was witches, whatever, but realistically, it was a really horrible thing that happened. And I believe there were set photos like way early back, maybe even a year, of Catherine Hahn kind of wearing the robe, and it looked like a more ancient kind of setting. So I feel like the Salem witch trials being in New Jersey, I think that's going to be a big part of her backstory and maybe tie into her motivation for why she's doing this.
So let's walk that through logically. I really like that. Okay. So let's look at the pieces of the puzzle. Ancient house in Westview, right? A witch, literally a witch house. It was the house from Bewitched, which is awesome. I did not know that, right?
That was so cool.
You have this witch house, right? Built on top of an old temple that's clearly been there a long time. That's some sort of, it looks like it's hexagonal shaped, hexagons, right?
Right.
So that temple there, whatever, is the whole reason Agnes is there. Okay, hell of a coincidence that Wanda takes Vision's body there. That makes me think that Catherine Hahn wanted to use Wanda, right? That she wanted to use Wanda and knew Vision was the way to do that. Somehow found out Sword had Vision's body and said, go get Vision's body, bring him here,
Right.
And we'll take care of him. I'll help you bring him back. But that seems very direct. And then you add in this FBI witness who was also in Westview. So would it have been in Agatha's best interest to have Sword outside an encampment? Maybe to make Wanda feel more threatened.
Right.
To drive her to expand the hex. That could have been part of her plan too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and it seems. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm going to mute. Go ahead.
I was going to say it seems likely, just in the fact that at the end of episode 6, or I guess the beginning of it, middle of episode 6, she is at the edge of Westview, almost waiting for Vision to show up to push him outside the hex, which then forces Wanda to expand the hex, right? So she is, and then of course we get the visual of her in the car playing along like she's actually like doesn't know what's going on. So she was clearly there intentionally to try to push him outside of the hex, to then get Wanda to expand the hex and use her powers.
Or just because without Vision around, Wanda's easier to control, because Vision is the person who's suspicious and has the power to like free people.
No, good point.
Somebody emailed me today. I can't remember if it was an email. I get a lot of emails about this stuff with the theory that it was a little too on the nose, like that Hayward was Agatha's son and he's Nicholas Scratch and all that stuff. Or you can just say that they're in league together. Vision wants, Hayward wants Vision, and Agatha wants Vision out.
Right.
You know, so it could have just been that simple of a partnership. But then it backfired when Wanda created this hex. But Hayward genuinely seems to not know what the hell is going on. I don't think that she's working with Sword in any way.
Yeah, I kind of felt like they were just two opposing, like two different forces that were against our heroes that kind of just happened to clash. Because my impression was that Vision was brought in to kind of placate Wanda, because I don't think really Agatha would have predicted that Vision would go off script and decide to kind of blow up the whole reality. Because obviously once he really does find out, that's when we see that she sends Pietro. So I think that Vision really was someone who was there to help kind of ease her in and make her feel comfortable. And then once that distraction was kind of out the door and Vision's, I guess the Mind Stone helped him to kind of realize that something really is wrong here. Then you bring in Pietro, you get Vision away from Westview so that you can try to get in her head. And even Pietro was asking a lot of questions. It's so weird now because we know that Agatha was behind it. So we don't know why he was necessarily so curious about how she was doing it, unless maybe there's something about Wanda's powers that Agatha doesn't know. But I definitely think that Sword and Agatha are competing for different things. Like Wanda happened to step on Sword's toes by stealing Vision, and then they were like, all right, we got to go figure this out. But Agatha was like, we got magic, we're chilling. Like, we're not worried about Sword.
Well, and I think Agatha initially wanted Vision just for breeding purposes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, because she's like, the first episode, she's like, seduction techniques. Oh, it's your anniversary. Trying to, you know, get them to be romantic together, right?
Yeah. It's almost weird that in the comics.
Yeah, and so
I can hear you. I'll still be on the thing. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So, and the other thing too, and you had mentioned about, I think Taylor, you had mentioned about Wanda or Vision being there to kind of placate her, and then once he went off book, kind of getting her out, right? And if that's the case, she's occupied by Pietro when he leaves the hex. She doesn't even know that he's gone, right?
Right.
If not
Billy
for her son, right? If not for Billy, she never finds out, and maybe he's gone before she ever realizes that even happened, right? And then that then crushes her or whatever, and now she's easier to control than she even was. And so, you know, if Agatha doesn't know that that he has those powers, which why would she? He didn't show any of those powers until that moment, right? Really. And so if she doesn't know that they have powers, she wouldn't know that, oh yeah, they have the same powers that, you know, that their mother and uncle had, right? And so she doesn't plan on that. Wanda is preoccupied, doesn't know the Vision's left the hex, but meanwhile her son is like, wait a second, like something's going on with that. And then she focuses, shoots him away, right? Focuses and is like, oh my God, I have to go save him, right? So it could be a situation where, like you said, I think Ryan, maybe it was you that said it, where like she wants him out. And so, you know, distracted with Pietro, but it backfires because the son figures out that he's outside the hex, you know?
I think you're 100% right. My initial thought when I saw the episode was, oh, Agnes wanted to expand the hex. Excuse me, but I don't think that's it at all. In fact, I think that backfires in a worse way because Wanda's losing control of the reality, maybe because it's too big.
Right.
You know, we saw in episode Halloween episode 5, where that was 5, right? No, it was 6.
6.
We saw in episode 6 where the further from Wanda, the less the control, you know? But interestingly, it didn't seem that way after the hex expanded, because the circus people are still being circus people. True. I don't know if that's just because they wanted to do the gag of circus people.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Probably that. But it could just be that like she's more spread thin. You know, maybe having all those kids in Westview, that like surplus of population made it harder for Agatha to. No, that's the thing. Wanda's not controlling them. Agatha, I got to rethink that.
Yeah, right? Good point.
Same principle though, that where she's localizing the control around Wanda. So there's a limitation to Agatha's power. But maybe when the Hex expanded, it increased her power, and that's tied to the book that she keeps in the basement that's glowing with Wanda's red energy. You know, she needs Wanda's energy to power that book. The book gets more powerful, she gets more powerful.
Is that book, do you guys think that book is the missing book from Doctor Strange?
I love that. I thought that was, how did 100%. you even find that? That is such a deep cut.
No, I've known about that book. I can't claim that. Because I've known about that missing book since the Darkhold was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because a fan theory popped up somewhere, and I don't remember if like ScreenCrush or Screen Rant or Den of Geek, whatever wonderful website reported that fan theory.
Right.
I just happen to remember it. You know, and the book isn't the Darkhold from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It looks different, but you know,
but it feels like it could be, especially because we know they're trying to get all the supernatural guys involved, like Werewolf by Night, you got Moon Knight, you got Blade, everybody coming in. There's no reason for it not to be the Darkhold. It'd be a very easy way, and it would make sense to have, you know, a magical mystical character bring back some type of either Nightmare and Mephisto or somebody, whoever she's trying to summon. I feel like it would make a lot of sense and just kind of give them a little something so people have years to understand what the Darkhold does, how important it is, and then have it come back up again in a couple of years once they start, you know, opening up that can of worms.
And that goes back to what you said earlier, you know, Pat, when you were talking about who's the big bad. Is there someone like in a Vision and Scarlet Witch story, when you introduce an evil book, it's going to have a bad guy inside of it who's trying to get out. They did that at least twice. I haven't read all the new Scarlet Witch series. That happened at least twice in the comics. There was this guy who was the spirit of Halloween, and there was Cthulhu, and his origin is even weirder because it's tied into Wundagore Mountain and half people, half animals who were imbued with the spirits of Camelot. Like those comics are so freaking weird that it blows my mind we're even getting a portion of them on screen. So yeah, I think there's going to be, she's trying to free something from the book or keep something inside of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to think about, right? Is how much of Wanda's energy is she using? And then is it tied to like the amount of detail that goes into the show, even like the opening credits, right? And, you know, so many people, and I think you pointed it out too, and so many people have done it where it's like, you know, she was so peppy in those first episodes. And then now she's like, previously on Wandavision. It's like, you know, it just, all those little tiny details that if you're not paying attention to, you're going to miss, but they do it because they're really like that attention to detail. To me, that's what makes the MCU, because they put that work into it. And again, that book, I mean, that Doctor Strange came out, what, 2016? Like that's 5 years ago at this point, you know? So, and it was, you know, a throwaway line where what's the, you know, where's the missing book or whatever. Oh, don't worry about, you know, like it just like, that's what they do. And they just find a way to connect all these things together. And it's unbelievable, you know?
It would surprise me if it wasn't a plan, but they do that kind of thing intentionally. You know, it's sort of like, how when they worked on Star Wars 77, George Lucas said, no, it's too clean, make it dirtier. You know, we want it to look lived in. So you can go back like Iron Man 2, the map of Wakanda, you know, being on behind Nick Fury. That's great. But that didn't necessarily mean that Kevin Feige had his little pie chart out and he was like, wow, in 2018, we'll you know, like, because things change, movies change, but they went, there's also one in the Atlantic and there's one near, you know, for Namor. So, or maybe it was or Antarctica. It was, anyways, it indicated Namor. So they're always going to be doing that kind of thing, like leaving little things. And you know what? If no evil book would have ever popped up, we wouldn't have been like, where's that evil book?
Right.
That's going to pop up again, you know? Someone checked that book out of the library. The ancient one was reading it right then, you know, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's a good point. So it's, I mean, like I said, the attention to detail is great. I will say we're still waiting on the aerospace engineer. But Taylor pointed this out, man, and I just think it's the funniest thing ever, dude. For those of you that haven't watched the ScreenCrush videos, Ryan does a thing every week where he throws out your mom, and you got me so good this week because we all obviously were waiting for the engineer, and you were like, oh, but you know, Captain or whatever her name is, she's like, she's even better because she's your mom, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like waiting for the reveal, and I was like, oh, nailed me, like I just. So what is the origin of that? Where did that come from?
That was the very first Mandalorian video. And I was pumped, like, you know, long story short, the company that owns ScreenCrush, Town Square Media, owns a lot of different stuff. And I've had a lot of different roles in the company. and they've been great to work for, and I've loved everything I've ever done. But they moved me to full-time ScreenCrush, and I had a couple months where like not much was happening, and then The Mandalorian came out, and I was really excited. I was like really happy to finally have something to make a video about. And I also think that like what I do is kind of silly for a living. That like I'm actually like getting to watch a Star Wars show and like cool. Look up every single species, like typing in Star Wars species with horns. Is that a Deveronia? I'm not sure. And like looking that up, and I was like, I thought I should just like, I actually went through a couple of drafts. Is it your dad? Is it your boyfriend or girlfriend? I'm like, nah, stick with your mom, So I actually, and then I kept doing it because people kept like, they liked it. And people, if I didn't do it, I would get asked like, where's my mom at?
Right.
And some people hate it. Some people say, I don't get the jokes. I don't think they're funny. They'd be better off without them. I'm like, well, you're not in my club. Doing it, You're lame. Shut up, new kid.
Right. That's for the real.
So right. I did that. I started, I could feel that I was like anticipating them too much and they were too easy to call. So I actually went back to my roots. I rewatched the first couple of videos I put it in to like, no, it's gotta be fast. And I was like actually looking at what I did before.
Good.
Yeah, like when Rocky gets beaten by Mr. T and he has to go back to his roots.
That's it. See, Bill Belichick will be proud. He's self-scouting over there.
On the right
exactly.
So, I mean, listen, we're on the Past Public page. We got to mention Bill Belichick at some point, right? That's the way it is, So there's so many great. Oh, so about the aerospace engineer.
Yeah.
Who do you think it is? What do you think? Do you have any theories? I mean, I'm sure you do, but like,
no, I don't. Some people have thrown out Blue Marvel, Adam. I don't know how to pronounce his last name from the comics. I'd be really disappointed if it was him, because the thing that makes that character cool is that he was Black Superman in the early 60s and the government shut him down. And I read that comic recently and I was actually disappointed that they glossed over that. I was like, this is a pretty amazing story. That's the kind of story that like DC or Vertigo would give us 60 issues of, but Marvel glossed over it in 4 issues so he could like fight in present day with the Avengers. So if we're going to do Blue Marvel, like do him for real and do him better than he was in the book. And then Reed Richards is the one people keep throwing out, but like they're just now meeting with writers for the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I don't know, John Watts wouldn't have had time to cast anyone. I mean, they do cast people without the directors approving them. Like Chadwick Boseman was cast. Ryan Coogler had no say in it. I don't think he was hired when they cast him. So that does happen, but like, I don't know, this is pretty early to be throwing Reed Richards into it.
And it's a big, I mean, you can't miss. You can't, at this point, you can't miss on the Fantastic Four. I mean, there's been,
he's not gonna, he's dead set on doing them right.
I agree. And that's why it's like, you can't
the Marvel movie
that.
I'm most excited for. And have been. When Disney bought Fox, I was like, okay, X-Men, great. Not that I don't love the X-Men; they're fantastic. But like, I've seen it. They've already like adapted most of the flagship kind of storylines you always think of with X-Men. Actually, X-Men is a franchise that would work really well, interwoven tightly with the Disney Plus series. Now that I think about it, that should be an avenue for them.
So could it be Beast?
It could be Beast. Now you could do a Hank McCoy.
Right.
One theory that I've had. Yeah, he could be in Sword. One theory I've had for a while is that Thanos' snap would activate the mutant gene. Like something about that and humanity would like trigger that. And there have been mutants around before, just not very many. And then that would like propel it forward. So you could be meeting somebody who is a mutant, but isn't a mutant yet. Right. Who like that hasn't been activated. But I don't know. I kind of prefer if it's the same, like they hit puberty and they change. And that's one of the things that makes the X-Men, that it's a metaphor for gay rights and civil rights.
Right. No, that's a good point. Yeah.
I wish I had better theories on this, guys. I really, I want to hear what you have to say about who this person is.
I mean, honestly, I feel like this may be one where they did set it up in a way. Like, I feel like they kind of did put a little too much weight behind it to think that it's, fans completely over speculating. But the more I think about it, I feel like obviously we all wanted to see Reed Richards. Everyone was praying to see John Krasinski. But I think that's more just, fans always wanting something because there's always something to look into the comic books and say, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But like you said, they wouldn't want to rush that process most likely. I think there's like Jennifer Lawrence is just now getting tied to Sue Storm And that was, I think, like a couple of days ago. So obviously that would have had to be months ago that they cast Reed. And Blue Marvel especially, I think especially with Falcon and the Winter Soldier seeming like they're going to kind of dive into the super soldier program when they were experimenting on Black people. And I think they understand the weight that has enough that they wouldn't just shoehorn Blue Marvel in, especially when people don't know him that well. I think comic book fans know him, but if you just watch the MCU and Blue Marvel pops up, you're just going to, it's going to go right over your head. So,
and that's only because Monica's in the show. And I just don't think you rush that relationship. And I don't know. That's the thing about Marvel too. There's just so many damn characters.
Right.
Like it's unlimited. It's Marvel unlimited.
You could say any profession, and then there's like 10 people you could potentially have, get superpowers, and that's them.
And most of the main line, the big signature scientists we've already seen. Some of them just don't fit the profile of somebody who'd be working for SWORD. Banner wouldn't be doing that. Plus, he's not really an aerospace engineer. You know.
Right.
I
keep going back.
And even Blue Marvel. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, he's a physicist. He's not an aerospace engineer.
Right. That was what kind of threw me off when I saw those theories. I was like, Reed is the only specifically an aerospace engineer that really came to mind. So I thought it'd be weird if it was anybody else.
I mean, it wouldn't be Victor. I mean, it would have to be Reed's the only one who could conceivably be. I mean, it would be a great setup. Don't get me wrong. Like the idea that Reed, I put a video out where I said, wouldn't it be great if Reed worked on the Tesseract project, figured out that Sue was there and told him that, it's weapons. And he took his ship away that was powered by the Tesseract. And they've been in the negative zone for 10 years or 15, whatever.
I like that one.
And I think that tying him to SWORD totally makes sense. And if SWORD is corrupt, he would steal his ship and we would actually get the Fantastic Four's origin on screen for the first time.
Yeah.
Like the actual origin, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm just so excited for them. I'm so excited for them, especially with Marvel, totally embracing this weird, let's get out there. Let's get science fiction-y. It's like Fantastic Four was just a product that I feel like back in the day, the way people, especially executives, would view superhero movies, you just couldn't really get the okay to do something as weird as the Fantastic Four was invented to do. And what their entire job is to find new, universes and stuff. So I'm so anxious to see him. But at the same time, we're getting plenty of new, Earth reality twisting things in this show. So I'll be patient.
as a non comic book reader, I look at the Fantastic Four and I'm like, they've done so much crap, the original movies weren't great. The Chris Evans, Jessica Alba, Michael Chiklis movies were not very good. The first one was fine. The second one was,
I thought they were great when I was terrible. 5.
Well, right, but
I grew up and I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. And then the next one, you got phenomenal actors, but then it was just an absolute dumpster fire. And it's just like, and so it makes you cautious about doing something because it's like you have this great product in the MCU, and then to bring these characters back in who you've tried to put on screen multiple times, multiple iterations, and they've all not been successful, right? And so it's like, now to put it on screen again, and it's like, okay, let's make sure we get it right. And I do think they will get it right. I just have all the faith in the world in Marvel. I mean, look, I didn't know who the hell the Guardians of the Galaxy were. I had never heard of them.
I barely knew. I hadn't read a single Guardians comic.
And they're unbelievable, right? They're arguably the most popular ones, right? So it's one of those things where it's like you got to trust where they're going. But I will say, I keep getting hung up on. Paul Bettany said that he worked with an actor during this show that he's always wanted to work with. And the name that kept coming to my head was Ian McKellen. And because of the Magneto reference where technically they are Magneto's kids, right? And so does Magneto show up at some point? Now clearly he's not an aerospace engineer, but does he show up at some point where it's like, hey, this, maybe he's connected to that aerospace engineer in some way or whatever the case may be. So I don't know if that'll be right or not, but it'd be a hell of a reveal to get Ian McKellen.
If you're going to cast Mephisto in the MCU and you don't cast Ian McKellen, you're doing something wrong.
Oh,
imagine that,
That'd be something evil else. Gandalf. That'd be pretty sick.
That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah. Evil Gandalf. Exactly.
Oh man. Right. So it's just, and there are some scenes that we're running a little bit long, but there are some scenes I do want to talk about. I love I love the scene of Monica turning into Spectrum. I just thought that was so well done. Amazing. You know, and of course, this show is interesting because I don't typically watch with the closed captioning on, but like the third time through, I'll throw on the closed caption because you catch so much of that dialogue that you miss.
Yeah, I've learned to do that.
And every episode, and it's really interesting. And so of course, you know, there's all that dialogue from Captain Marvel, and then also from the show as well, talking about her mom's dead and everything like that. So I just thought that was so well done, you know. And then of course she turns into Spectrum, and you're like, oh my god, like let's go.
And it was such a well done origin. Like it had this nice mix of like the Matrix, like Neo seeing the Matrix for the first time, and the different phases of time, and a lot of 2001: A Space Odyssey, like the way that the astronaut evolved into the space baby at the end of the movie.
Right.
It had a lot of like cinematic callbacks like that, but it also I thought was very true to her and the history that they've kind of put in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got a superhero landing.
We did get a superhero landing.
Let's go.
You know, I traced those back once when I was doing a video on Blade a few years ago, and I was like, Blade started that.
Really?
Because it was in the Matrix, the superhero landing, and it was in an NSYNC video. Timberlake did it, but Blade was before all came out before those. Yeah, he does. He's at the end. But there's a great supercut online of 3-point landings, and it's really well edited. It's got a few million views. So I steal from that when I show through things sometimes.
Hey,
you know,
wrong with that.
But Blade did that. That was him.
That's cool. That's so
a very
cool.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I noticed with the closed captioning on, well, I just watched it like this afternoon with the closed captioning on. In the Agatha song, one of the lyrics is "It's too late to fix anything now that everything has gone wrong." And I was like, that's a really interesting lyric, because I was like, it's too. So in other words, you're saying we're past the point of fixing things because, and that's of course what they're implying. Now, whether that's true or not, who knows? But like, have we gotten past the point where we can fix whatever is going on or whatever is wrong in the town? Or are they saying you can't fix what Wanda is right now? Like, I didn't know, but I just thought it was interesting. You know, that lyric itself, I thought was really just caught my eye when I was reading it. Like, wait a second, what do you mean we can't fix anything? You know, it was fascinating. So
that's really interesting.
And Ryan, you even brought up the whole Nexus point. Like, I feel like that's a pretty big one that we got to talk about too. Ryan, you mentioned it in the video and on the pod, right? Obviously, the fact that for anybody who doesn't know, a Nexus being is someone who's the same version of themselves in every reality. You know, like they're kind of the focal point where everything spins around. So especially when we're talking about Agatha's origin and kind of what she's up to, we got literally a whole commercial for this title that's very important in terms of the multiverse and everything. So I just realized we didn't really kind of dive into that. But Ryan, if you got anything else on the whole kind of Nexus string.
Yeah, I mean, you guys already mentioned Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man 3, all these multiverse, you know, theories or, you know, possible multiverse things. And the Nexus of all realities is part of Marvel Comics with Man-Thing and a swamp, totally unrelated to Swamp Thing. No similarities there at all. So if you're going to be going into the multiverse and exploring these different things, which they're also already doing with the What If show, it makes sense that like maybe Westview, New Jersey is the Nexus. Maybe Agatha's little chamber is the Nexus point, and that's why it's a hexagon, because I did a whole video about the hexagons where I talked about how if there's 6 Infinity Stones, 6 sides to a hexagon. Hexagons are a really strong shape for building. Like in nature, bees build hexagon hives because there's no wasted space, and they're very, you know, they support well. So maybe that's the structure of the universe, and that's why the wormhole travels are also in hexagons. So if that's the case, then the multiverse itself could also be composed of like spheres of hexagons, you know, that all kind of bundle up together. The same way the Kree map out planets as spheres. So I'm also a little cynical about the idea of a multiverse, because it is also different film studios consolidating their IP, you know, saying we can make whatever Spider-Man movie we want, or whatever DC movie we want. I choose to believe Marvel's not doing that there's some other reason for it. I don't think they're going to bring the X-Men in from the multiverse. I think they want to build their own thing up. I'm really excited for that, for the Nexus. I think we've already seen the Nexus. I think it's that chamber under the house.
Right. No, I mean, that's a great theory. I do like that a lot, about the Nexus being actually there. in Westview. And again, that answers the question as to why the original question we asked, which is why Westview, which is like, well, that's kind of where it has to be, right? Because that's where that's where the center of everything. So
Salem witch trials again.
Yeah,
I don't know how close it was.
Yep.
But then I keep going back to who's the missing witness.
Right.
You know, Jimmy says it's a guy. Doesn't mean that it is. You know.
Right.
But they put Agnes's face up on that board without an ID. I don't think he'd be throwing his witness's face up on the board.
No,
I don't think it's Agnes. You know,
does Dottie not have a thing on the board? I don't know if
she's the other person who doesn't have an ID. I'm pretty sure she's even on the board.
She's the other person who's not on the board, but I wouldn't read too much into it because I think that the whole point of Dottie was she's the key to everything in this town. And now I think it's pretty apparent that Agatha was placing importance on her. So Wanda would want to copy her and would have kids at Dottie's urging. So it's a way for Agatha to do that by proxy. Yeah. That's what I think. I think that like they did a really good job of making us think it was her. I think because there was a lot of speculation, like Dottie, Dorothy, Wizard of Oz. Like we kind of dove down that hole.
Well, yeah, and that's why like, and listen, it's 2021, right? So people want to binge things immediately, right? People just give me everything and then I'll watch it all, right? And I've talked to so many people that are like, oh, well, once I get to episode 9, then I'll watch it all. And I'm like, no, that's not like. And I'm sure for you, right, who's putting out videos about it, it's great that it's week to week. But I love
it's Christmas every week,
right? I mean, it's like and then you get to talk about it.
Content Christmas.
That's it, you know. And for me too, like I feel like that's so much fun. And that was one of and Game of Thrones. And I think what happened is that Game of Thrones ended so poorly that people were scarred from that. But like that. Every week going into that, like what's going to happen next and who's going to do and what's going here and all these theories about what's going on. And I love that we're back into that. And it's just so cool that they're doing this week to week because you do get to sit there and say like, okay, like what's going to happen now and who, you know, what's happening next and who's doing this and who's doing that. And like, you know, a million different theories. And I've said before on the show a million times, Taylor, like we've thrown out hundreds of theories and like already like hundreds of them have been wrong, right? So it's like, you know, that's the best part is throwing out all those different theories, you know?
Hey, man, a Hall of Fame baseball player misses 7 out of 10 times.
That's right.
You know, you miss all the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
I'm so happy with it. Like I grew up in the 80s. This is TV. This is like what just TV is. I don't, this idea of like sitting down and have you noticed how your viewing quality decreases on like episode 3 of a show? How when it becomes like something you have to get through, or even reading a book, like when I get to the end of a book and I read through the last chapters too fast, you miss too much, you know. And this is not a microwave thing. This is steak. This is like the Mandalorian. Like we wouldn't have been talking about Timothy Olyphant's character in the Mandalorian if they dropped all 8 episodes at once.
Right.
So this is the way. I can't believe Netflix still does it like this. You saw Amazon transition away from it with The Boys.
Yeah,
where they dropped the first 3 episodes, but then they did them week by week. Thank God.
Yeah,
like it's just it's how it should be done. It's serialized. You know, it's that kind of storytelling. And I absolutely hate the dump and pump model. Like, especially for my job.
Yeah, and I was even talking to a friend just in terms of the way that you retain it. Like Daredevil, fantastic show, like one of the best I've ever seen. But the way that you have to watch it, like it's so dense that you kind of have to go back to back to back, or you'll forget things. But then when I kind of think back, other than like the one shots, like the crazy fight scenes, it's hard to really remember a lot of plot points from Daredevil, even though it was a fantastic show, because you have to just get through like, 8 or 9 hours kind of within a short time frame. And I think just the way that you structure the episodes, 13 episodes. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So my exact point. But I feel like with this, you really not only get the chance to watch it a few times, but the way the episodes are set up, I think you just kind of have more room to breathe and really appreciate what's in front of you instead of constantly just kind of inhaling it. Like you said, Ryan, where if it's like a book, you just get through it so fast that you don't really, your brain, I feel like just kind of zones out at some point when you watch more than like a few hours of the same thing. So I love this. I mean, as much as it frustrates me as a kid who came up in the era of Netflix and binge watching and everything, it's kind of a nice little therapy to have where I can enjoy it. And, you know, that slow burn is very cathartic because they always give us enough the next week that you're satisfied from the week before, but you want more, which you just don't get really much anymore.
Right.
That's how it should be. That's like every great show should leave you wanting more.
That's it, you know. And
sounds like such a novel idea now.
I know. Well, that's, you know, Stephen King did this way back in the early 90s. You know, it said when he was a kid growing up, they had the serial novels where the novel would come out and they leave you at a cliffhanger, and then when he wrote with the Green Mile, that's it. Yeah, when he wrote the Green Mile, he released them serialized. You know, and
I did not know that,
and brought that back, which I thought was so cool. Now, of course,
Christmas Carol was done that way. That's the way they used to do novels. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, is that he was like, I miss that. Now, I was like 8 when that happened, so I didn't read it that way. I read it like as it was in the, you know, once it was all put together. But like now we're, you know, if we can get back to some of that, I think that's great. Like you don't want the episode to end and you be like, okay, good, that was great. Right. Like, no, you want the episode to end and be like, what's next? Like I need to know what's happening next, right?
That's also what comic books are. Like comic books are a serial storytelling where every issue, not every issue, but like most issues ended on a cliffhanger and had some pull on the cover to get you in. Like that's the great thing. Like my friend Patrick Willems did a video essay a few years ago where he talked about even as a comic book fan, he wasn't that excited by the MCU because it wasn't telling the whole stories. It was just telling the big crossover events. So if you read comics, you know that like the Infinity Gauntlet, major crossover, you know, Secret Wars, major crossover, but it means more if you can go and read the side stories of the individual characters and their titles. That's why I'm excited about Disney Plus, because now we're getting the side stories. We're getting a little shading. So you can have a character like Ms. Marvel pop up in a big crossover movie. She doesn't have to do a lot because I already know her story.
Right.
You know, from a
no, it's cool. It's really cool. So
Disney Plus is almost like a comic book provider. Well, obviously it's video and everything, but now Marvel's got the money. Everybody wants to play in their playground. They got the resources. They can basically just be like, all right, you don't want to read? Fine. We'll give it to you in video format every week. It's just like even when I was little, I would get, you know, comic books on a weekly basis, the serialized thing, just like you said. And now they're doing it back to back. Like, are we even going to have a week between WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I think they're doing like the making of WandaVision, right? In between on the 12th.
Yeah. Thank God. Thank God. And I don't think Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be, I just don't think it'll be this cryptic of a show. I don't anticipate getting the kind of views that we're getting on ScreenCrush. Not that it won't be great, we won't love it, but like I don't think we'll have those questions to answer. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. My God.
Right.
But it's a lot of Thunderbolt stuff.
Man, that's real. They're definitely setting up a Dark Avengers, you know, Thunderbolt Ross, Red Hulk kind of thing. Like
Yelena was on set, I think, the other day, or the actress. Oh, Florence Pugh. Love her. I think she was on the set a few days ago.
Of
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Really?
Yeah, Yelena Belova. She was like in the airport, I think, going to Atlanta, and they were saying like that's obviously where they're shooting, and she's English or something. I don't even think she lives in the States. So people were saying that she's going to be shooting that, and obviously I think Ross is supposed to be in it. So I think that's the big kind of thing they're trying to set up there, and I'm hoping for it.
Gee, I hope that doesn't that it coming out before Black Widow doesn't throw that off.
Oh yeah.
You know,
that's the one thing about and this is just me personally, I just feel like they should have just dropped it. Like, just drop Black Widow.
Oh my God, I'm thinking of Hawkeye. Correction, I'm thinking of Hawkeye. I'm thinking of Hawkeye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In my head. Okay,
I thought that was weird. I wasn't going to call you out.
I'm like, haven't they already finished filming?
But it doesn't matter. It's a Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, right?
Stuff. I feel like
that would be
kind of lean towards the Thunderbolts.
And that would be after. That makes sense. That would be after what's it called? That'd be after
we
Black Widow, right?
It doesn't get rescheduled again.
Really think Black Widow, they might push it back a month or two, but I think they'll do like they did with Mulan, the premium release. I don't think they want to, because I don't think they made a lot of money on that, because I think a lot of people just pirated it instead, or knew a guy. I bought it. Like I didn't even really care about seeing Mulan, but I just wanted to support the movies. So
I'll be buying the new one that they're coming out, the Raya and the Last Dragon, or whatever the kids.
That looks great.
To see that, so I'll be buying that one.
Rep Queens.
Yep.
Is that also going to be the premium?
Same
rental?
thing. Yeah. So I don't know if
good. Maybe they will do that with Black Widow then.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. So I think they said it's coming out in the theaters and it's going to be available on Disney Plus for the premium rental, I believe is what they said.
Right.
So Raya, yes.
Okay.
And so they could do then something similar with Black Widow, where they could release in the theaters and also put it on Disney Plus at the same time. where, you know, obviously
it's two tough experiments though, because like Mulan, I feel like people weren't really excited about because they kind of advertised that they were taking away so many things that people like the music, Mushu, like everything that people go back to see. And then Raya,
her personality.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that she was a person who didn't have superpowers that weren't explained. But then Raya, I feel like has a lot of potential, but I've not seen any real advertisement for it.
Right.
So, you know, it's kind of two things where I'm not sure it's going to be a great, I guess, test for Disney to see how well is Black Widow going to sell, because that's $1 billion franchise people have been looking forward to, albeit that you put off for a couple of times, versus two movies that one wasn't advertised very well. Actually, neither was advertised very well, but one was just because we haven't really seen it. Like, you haven't really heard about Raya unless you're looking for it. So I just hope they get it out sooner than later. We've been waiting long enough.
Without box office money, you're not getting box office advertisement. You're not getting the billboards, the TV spots. When they put Soul out, that was just a Disney Plus release, right? That wasn't a premium thing.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty disappointing if Mulan, Raya, and Soul are all released on Disney. And they say, oh, it's okay to put those on Disney Plus, but not Black Widow.
Right.
Just because you're talking about 3 major children's movies with non-white leads.
Right.
But then, and it could also be that Scarlett Johansson might have a thing in her contract.
That's true.
I think she does.
Prohibiting this. Yeah. And that wouldn't surprise me, because look, and I don't blame her for this. When these guys sign up for their deals, a big part of it is the profit sharing. You know, that's how Nicholson made his money on Batman. And ever since then, everybody's gotten a piece of the pie. That's why Robert Downey Jr. was, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So that could be a very real reason. But on the other hand, they've got their plan and their rollout. Maybe they just need to supplant that potential cash inflow with just an extra bonus for her or something.
Right.
Or whoever else, the director, whoever else has that deal.
Right.
I'm not picking on ScarJo. You
No,
know?
exactly.
But Warner Brothers did.
You have to do something, because you got to get it out. You have to continue. You have to continue, because you're going to release the series. So if you're going to release a series, at some point that movie's got to fit in there somewhere, right? It's not just like a complete throwaway. So, but anyway, so we'll see. But anyways, I think that's it, man. We covered so much. Thank you so much for coming on, Ryan. I mean, everyone should know where to find you, but before you leave, let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Arey, or on the ScreenCrush YouTube channel. Got WandaVision breakdowns every Friday, and then like little follow-ups, plus a random video essay about Breaking Bad or Marvel movies or DC movies or Game of Thrones. We cover a lot of different stuff.
Nice. Very
I'm
nice.
a proud subscriber myself. I watch religiously. Seriously, for years. Highly recommend.
Thanks, man.
Yep. No, it's great stuff. So thanks for coming on, Ryan. We really appreciate it. Maybe we'll have you on one of the other shows, as we go down the line. So
yeah, let me know. I mean, I know nothing about football, so maybe it'd be hilarious to have me on that.
Hey, maybe we'll have you on. We got a ton of draft content coming on. Maybe we'll have you on talking about college prospects.
I'll just be playing with Play-Doh.
Just like make the highest prospect you know about. Just make him out of Play-Doh. That's all we have.
I can play Tecmo Bowl.
That's it. There you go. See?
I can hold my own on that game from the late 80s.
Montana Rice. That's all you need to know. Montana Rice and Bo Jackson. That's it.
Bo Jackson was my guy.
Oh
yeah. Plays the Raiders. Bo Jackson every time.
That's right.
Ask one.
All right. Thank you so much, man. And we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
All right.